Okay, hi guys, welcome back. So today we're just gonna be doing a little bit more practice with hundredths and tenths in decimals. And it's more or less the same stuff, but we're gonna look at it a couple different ways. So on your work later on Google Classroom, you'll see. Make sure this is on. So you might find something like this. Let's say I do 5/10. 5/10 times what? And I want to turn that 5/10 into hundredths. So I'm going to see I have 5/10 times what equals how many hundredths. How can I turn this tenths into hundredths? Just this would be what was it? Decomposing fractions like we've done before. Or we could compose fractions, which we'll do that after. So what do I need to multiply by 5/10 to make it hundredths? Well, we start with the denominator. We have 10, we have 100. What times 10 equals 100? 10. So that's easy. I know what I'm going to multiply by. Then I need to multiply the numerator by 10 too. And then that will give me 50 hundredths. Sorry, I'm writing so slow. I'm using the trackpad on my laptop and it's kind of hard. Because before, the first thing we looked at was we wanted to know, when we looked at the tape diagrams, we were looking at each tenth on the tape diagram. We turned the tape diagram to hundredths, and we wanted to put tenths and hundredths on the same tape diagram. We found out that at each little tenth mark, like if I made my little tape diagram here, then I marked it 10 times. I'm not going to do 10, but 1. Every little tick was 1/10. And because we had 10 of them, we were putting hundredths on the same one. At every one, so this was 1/10, say. Every 1/10 was equal to, in the hundredths, was equal to 10 hundredths. Oh, geez. That's 10 hundredths. So we know that every 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. And we also proved that was true because we knew how to decompose tenth into hundredths. We just multiply by 10. Times 10. Equals 10 hundredths. Now I could do the reverse too, right? So we can multiply to turn tenths into hundredths. We can turn hundredths into tenths too. We can compose it, meaning taking smaller pieces and making them into bigger pieces. So let me get a new screen here. Say I started with 50 hundredths. What do I need to divide by to get 5/10? And I think we already know the answer. We just saw it, but how do I get from 100 to 10? I need to divide by 10. So that's fairly easy. You're going to see that on the work in Google Classroom today. Another way we're going to look at tenths and hundredths. They're going to do the number bonds again. It's hard to make a number bond in Google Classroom though. We can't like draw on it. It'd be cool if we had like an app or something we could share together. We could do that, but it's going to be more or less of the same thing. Like say you'll see a fraction like 46 hundredths. It's so slow. 46 hundredths. So we're gonna put this into, we have 46 hundredths as a fraction. We're gonna put this in its decimal form over here. But first we want to just decompose it, or take out its parts, and we want to see how many tenths we can make in this 46/100ths. And so we know that every 1/10 equaled 10/100ths. So how many 10/100ths could I take out of here? Well, just look at the 10 place. I got 46/100ths. I could take out 4 10/100ths. We'll put those here. So I could write 40/100ths. Because that's what I took out. I took out those 40/100ths. But we want to write them as tenths. So 40/100ths as tenths. Well, we know every 1/10 equals 10/100ths. So we'll have to divide. We divide 100 by 10, 40 by 10. And that would be 4 tenths. So there was 4 tenths in 46/100ths. And we're done with that. These are the same. They mean because they're equal to the same thing, but we want to use tenths. And so then how many hundredths are left over? Just look back up here. We see it right there, right in front of our eyes, 6/100ths. So make our little circle. So now I see I took 46/100ths. We took out the tenths, 4 tenths. There's 6/100ths remaining. So if I was putting these in their place values, here's our decimal. This is our ones place. This is our tenths place, not tens, because tens would be bigger than 1. This is our tenths, so with like a TH. Like our tenths with a, hopefully that looks like a TH. And then this would be our hundredths. So, I mean, how many ones do we have? Well, it was 46/100ths. So it's not even one whole because it's 46 out of 100. So this is a 0. How many tenths did we have in 46/100ths? We had 4. 4 tenths right there. And how many hundredths were left over? 6/100ths. So 46/100ths as a decimal was 0.46. And I know some of you might be getting it pretty fast. Like, let's look at 22 hundredths. A lot of us by now could probably just look at 22 hundredths and be like, okay, I already know that as a decimal. It's 0.22. But this is going to help us see the relationship between tenths and hundredths, because we're going to be working more with them together. So that will be on Google Classroom as well. And then there'll just be one last thing, and we're going to kind of be counting by hundredths. So we see here we got all these little hundredths, 0.1, 0.01, 0.001. So I could count them all. They're kind of already grouped in 10, it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, there's 10 there. This is 10 here because it's the same. So we got 20, but this one looks less than 10. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I got 10, 10, 8. So that's 28 hundredths altogether right here. And now we're just seeing them individually. If we had our books, they made little discs with these. It's not really useful for us to make discs on Google Docs, so it'd just be a mess. So we're just going to do the little numbers. And so kind of like similar to when we would put parentheses around fractions to make to make wholes. Instead, we're not gonna make wholes per se, but we want to make tenths. How many hundredths do we need to make a tenth? Well, we already talked about that, right? I had 0.01 plus 0.01. That would equal 0.02. And if I kept going, kept adding hundredths. Eventually I get to 0.09 9 hundredths. And then when I add one more hundredth, it'll give me 10 hundredths. Or it's the same as, does that look familiar? It's the same as 1/10, a tenth. Or it's 10 hundredths, because remember, 1/10 equals 10 hundredths. It's still up here. 1/10 equals 10 hundredths. So we need 10. Let me go back to that. So we need 10 hundredths to make a tenth. We need 10 hundredths. You can see up here where I'm circling 10 hundredths to make just 1/10, right? So let's count. Let's count them in groups of 10 hundredths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these make a tenth. There's 10 of them. So let me highlight them here. I'm gonna go green. That's my favorite color. So there's 10 hundredths. We'll highlight the groups of 10. Is there another 10 here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10. Another 10. We'll highlight those. That's another tenth. 10 hundredths make a tenth. And then how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 hundredths. So these do not equal a tenth. These do not equal a tenth. This is just 8 hundredths right here. So my highlighted ones, we were able to make groups of 10 hundredths into 1/10. So we have here is all these equal. Oh, don't want that highlighted. Okay, I'll pull it over. Equal 1/10. These equal these equal 1/10. And then these did not equal a tenth, but how many hundredths did we have? We had 8 hundredths. So what's my final decimal together? We have 1/10, another tenth, and 8 hundredths. If I add those all together, go down here. So I have 1/10, 1/10 plus my 8 hundredths. Now it's just like regular addition, 0.1 plus 0.1. That equals 0.2 plus 0.08 or 8 hundredths. And I'll just put my 8 in my hundredths place right there. So all these hundredths, 28 hundredths, those individual hundredths, 28 of them equals 0.28, 28 hundredths. But we were able to make groups of tenths in all those hundredths. So we're going to see that in our homework. You're going to have to we'll highlight groups of 10 hundredths to make tenths. We'll find out how many tenths we can make in total. And then we'll see what hundredths are left over, and we'll represent it as a decimal. So this should be fairly straightforward. Use this video if you need to on your on the work on Google Classroom. And I will see you guys tomorrow.